Highlight of the Week. I'm your host Martine, and I'm here at Union Republic in downtown Jersey City. Today I'll be exploring visual art with visual artist Daniel Morteh. Also known as Kodaq Jonez, his work has been featured on Digable Arts Festival, Jersey City Art Studio Tour, and countless others. But today, he took some time out to speak with us on the Highlight of the Week. Without further ado, I present to you Kodaq Jonez. So, Kodaq Jonez, at last. Like, I've been wanting to do this for quite some time now, for what, 3-4 years?
I greatly appreciate that.
That's crazy. So, you know, you're finally in the hot seat, so we're going to pick your brain about a few things. But first, I want to talk about your name, Kodaq Jonez. How was Kodaq Jonez birthed?
Kodaq Jonez actually came from my very first goal as a filmmaker. When I was a kid, my favorite TV show was You're Gonna Cover. That show really inspired me to go into film and television. I was so devastated the way that show ended. My goal was to bring back that show in 20 years.
And do something similar to it?
Exactly. And one of the characters on that show was a kid named Kodaq who witnessed a murder.
Okay.
And he was being chased around. So I thought that was a cool name considering the fact that I was walking around college with a camera all the time.
Right. So Jonez?
Yeah. Jonez,
you're like, well, you need a second part to that name. You can just call it Kodaq.
Exactly.
I mean, Kodaq would have been fine alone.
I just wanted to make sure it was something different, so that's why Kodaq is with a Q. And with Jonez, that was around the same time, like, Jim Jones came out. There was an artist named Mike Jones.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it had, I didn't want, don't get me wrong, I didn't want to be a rapper. That wasn't my goal. I just wanted a really cool name. And I don't know why, but I thought Kodaq Jonez was kind of cool.
I mean, or it could have been like something like Kodaq Morteh or something like that.
Yeah, I'm thinking that. A lot of people actually do address me more by my last name than anything else anyway. So.
Speaking of your last name, Morteh, you are of Ghanaian descent. So you were born here, but your parents were born in Ghana?
Yes.
Okay. Now, how was it like growing up in Jersey City with Ghanaian immigrant parents?
I was just raised a little bit differently. Very dirt poor when they were growing up, so I had that same type of mentality. No name brand clothes, no trips to here or there. I never even heard of Disneyland until I was like maybe 17.
Right.
So it was a really growing and evolving time that actually was the best thing that ever happened. I was able to spend 3 months in Ghana, and it gave me a really strong sense of humility to the point where I'm now proud I never wore name brand stuff as a kid.
Right.
I'm proud I didn't go through all the pointless pleasures of a teenager in high school. Because in college I was able to understand and focus on a bigger picture.
Right. Do you remember that initial conversation that you had with either your mom or dad when you told them, like, look, photography and videography, this is something I really want to do? Like, how was that response? Because I know, being of Haitian background, I know how it is, and I know how they expect you to pursue something in the medical field or in the education field. So how was that conversation like for you?
My father was like, either be a doctor or a lawyer, mainly a doctor.
Right.
And it was, and that was my state of mind. Like, I had to be a doctor to make them happy. And then Snyder High School, around the year I was going into high school, Snyder High School had a media arts program.
Right.
And I really wanted to go into that because that was the same time I was watching You're Gonna Cover.
Right.
And I was like, I really want to learn about television and film. And my dad was like, absolutely out of the question.
Wow.
I went to Lincoln High School for legal magnet, and I realized how much I hated the law.
Wow.
But I love TV shows about law.
Right.
And police and all this stuff. So I went to college for liberal arts, and then during that time, my relationship with my father was becoming a little more distant. So I had a little more freedom, and I guess the best way to rebel against all he was telling me about.
Right. Just do the exact opposite of what he wanted you to do.
Yeah.
The one thing I think that stood out to me, I remember watching your video coverage for 28 years later, My Jersey City. Please, let's talk about that. What was the whole idea behind that entire project?
The 28 years later was definitely featured in the Digable Arts Festival the following year, as well as Music Is My Energy, which is this series of live musicians performing, and I was able to do some effects thanks to the filterings that they were also using.
Nice, right.
Yeah, but with Jersey City 28 years later, it was just not only a declaration of how much I've grown to love this city. Like, I remember when I was in high school, and I didn't have the best high school experience, the first thing I wanted to be was, the first place I wanted to be was far away from Jersey City.
Right.
But now, over the past couple of years, especially the last, 2005, I never loved living in the city now more than ever before, because the desire to be different, the desire to be unique, you know, is growing more. And during my experience in high school, I was forced to suppress that because of, you know, just, you know, high school, you know, teenage bullying and, you know, just, you know, the whole, like, stuff that happens to any high school
Right,
kid.
especially in urban communities.
Exactly. And so as you grow up and you're allowed to embrace the desire to be unique, you know, not only does it just makes you feel better about yourself, but, you know, you are actually bringing forth growth of culture in the community that you live in.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Jersey City was always full of just different, like, we had a big art explosion that a lot of people don't know about. Jersey City, downtown arts district. But I see that now slowly reviving itself. So, and I definitely think, you know, artists such as yourself and other people are, you know, for credit for that. So I definitely have to congratulate you on everything that you've been doing. Like, you know, I'm not a photographer or videographer, but I'm always looking at your work and always constantly inspired, and, you know, to do better with the things that I do. So that's awesome. That's awesome.
One of the things that I think that makes this city so amazing, and me being in the position that I'm in, is that the people that are continuing to do work, the people that inspire me, you inspire me as well. Like I remember seeing you, bumping into you, and you was talking about all the projects you got going on.
Right.
And that was around the same time I was doing corporate work. Like I kind of like took a step back and decided to do a day job. And then I was like, man, I haven't been as active as much as I would like.
Did you feel like you were missing out?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I still to this day I do feel like I'm missing out, and I'm just slowly trying to grow more and more and be. I just never want to lose the momentum that I built. Once you slow down, you feel like you're going backwards, and you're not. You're just, you know, you're just absorbing more opportunities that come along your way, and handling the situation the best way you know how.
Right.
You know?
Now, speaking of, you know, being a freelance artist and also working, whether it's corporate or just having like a side job, I know it's definitely important because you definitely want to make money and fund your projects. Now, has working in corporate America, like doing the 9-to-5, has that ever like deterred you from your other aspirations and wanting to do more with your freelance work?
You know, when around early 2012, I got a really good 9-to-5. I thought it was really awesome. It helped fund a lot of the projects that I was doing, and you know, having that balance was really awesome. You know, I was doing a 9-to-5. I was also taking business classes to actually better my business and my brand as a photographer and filmmaker. Because one thing about being a photographer and a filmmaker, it's a very costly hobby and profession. Like you need to find a way to always make income, and having a 9-to-5 is definitely
it gives you that stability.
Exactly, and you want to pay rent on time.
That's true.
And I remember when I was doing that, and the balance was great. But when I started to go through like the politics in corporate America, the politics in just something as small as hospitality management, you'd be amazed how much corruption's in it. You know, and that really left a bad taste in my mouth to the point where it distracted me from taking my days off and taking the time that I'm not there to focus on, you know, my photography and my artwork. So I kind of got really
because you didn't want that to suffer. You didn't want to become, you know, too complacent, too comfortable with, you know, making so much money, which is a great thing. But you want to be able to focus on your own dreams and proceed from there.
And after a while, it just came to a point where I was like, I would rather swing coffee than deal with this. So, you know, I gave that up. Have no desire to actually go back. And it's funny to say this, but it's when my day job makes more than my photography and stuff on the side, it's when it affects. You know? So, you know, I try to keep that balance. You know, I mean, I've always, my first roommate taught me, as long as you use common sense and pay your rent on time, you know, say you can make your dreams come true.
Let's get into the business of handling a photography and videography company. Your company, TMX Media, which stands for, because I definitely want you to introduce this to everyone.
You know what? I don't remember how I came across it, but the TMX Media is basically the Morteh experience. I guess I'm a fan of Jim. You know, I love Jimi Hendrix. You know, but I forgot how I kind of intertwined it. I guess saying this is a Morteh production was too simple and plain. And at the same time, like, I've noticed a lot of my work, especially the first couple of years, was so personal that, you know, it's allowing you guys to experience what I go through. You know, like, especially all the stuff I did in college. But one of my first projects was when I went to Columbus, Georgia to do Head of Tech Humanity, and Robert Quiones, who was the head of the student union community there, wanted me to go down there and videotape the whole thing, and I was a part of the documentary, and I was actually building the houses.
Nice.
Like I would actually stop for a couple of hours and build the house.
Right.
Same thing when I went to New Orleans with the Nona Preservation Society, when we did the same thing. You know, like I was a part of the documentary. I was actually going in there, you know, saying, gutting houses and doing what I can to, you know, do the restoration.
And getting behind the camera and capturing everything.
Yeah, which is difficult. Extremely difficult.
Right. Now, you know, speaking of these trips, you took a very just special trip to Havana, Cuba. How was that experience like for you?
First of all, I always got to thank William Michael Barbie and Prestige Media Productions for putting that together. That was just an amazing experience, and I still to this day feel so honored that he trusted me to actually be a part of that and to actually invest so much money, because it costs a lot of money to go to Cuba.
Right.
To send two kids fresh out of film school to go down there and capture such a beautiful place. And it was derived from the desire to put together a documentary on the life of Ben Jones, who's this renowned local painter that taught in New Jersey City Nursery for 40 years.
Wow.
You know, so like you cannot not have a documentary about this man, but he's responsible for 40 years of education.
Right.
And so we went down there for 8 days because he goes there literally every year to do an art show, and it's a part of a lot of the knowledge that Ben Jones has. He considers himself in some degrees of a socialist. So, you know, he goes there all the time. So we had, in order to do this documentary, you got to have footage of him in Cuba. So we went down there for 8 days. It was an amazing experience. Their culture and knowledge is amazing. They embrace art so much, you know, and it's a shame that I was there for only 8 days because I wanted to see both the positive and negative.
Right. But you captured so much. You created a photography series called Havana Dreams, which I saw a few photos from that, and I was absolutely blown away.
Oh, thank you.
Blown away.
A quick story about that. I remember when I premiered that at the Art Studio Tour.
Yes, in 2012.
Yes, and this photographer came up to me and he said to me, "I just want to let you know that my mother just saw your photos and started crying because you took a picture of her old neighborhood that she hasn't been in like 30 years." You know?
So you took more of the photojournalism approach when you attended this trip?
I definitely wanted to capture Cuba. I definitely wanted to capture what Havana looked like and what Havana sees, and I wanted to do far more than just the old vintage cars and people smoking cigars. I really wanted to capture an environment and a culture of what Cuba is about.
So what has been the highlight of your career thus far?
That's a scary question to ask because, you know, the highlight also might mean everything's downhill. But once again, I realize I'm just getting started. So what I think is the highlight, you know, if I keep on continuing, that would be the beginning of it. But I would have to say was being able to be hired, not just go to Cuba, spend all this money, save up all this money to be a part of the project, but someone actually believed in your skills and talent enough to hire you, pay for your ticket, pay for your hotel stay, to go down to Cuba and capture a place like Havana, Cuba. That says so much. It says that someone has this amount of confidence in me. And I would have to say, when someone buys a picture that I printed out, when I did my solo art show in Hoboken, I sold 5 pieces. 3 was from one person. One person bought 3 pieces. And so far 5 people have bought some that day. And that was a very humbling and amazing experience because, like, I remember the next day, like, I just could not stop crying. I'm like, you know, like I still find it amazing that someone thinks my stuff is good enough to be on their walls, and it just inspires me to keep on bringing out that creativity, bringing out that talent and skill to continue to have that respect. I always say this. I really work hard to gain and earn people's respect to a point where I forget that I have it, you know, and it's something that I really don't want to stop doing, but I remember someone also telling me that I have to mix my humility with confidence, which is one of the things that I had to learn about, one of the reasons why I had to learn about the business of film and media.
Well, you know what, thank you so much. You definitely gave us an in-depth into your life and the struggles and everything, which led you to what you have now and all those opportunities. So without further ado, where can we find all of your work?
Most of my work,
social media, websites, everything.
Well, my website is basically DanielMorteh.com. My Facebook is Daniel Kodaq Morteh, Kodaq with a Q. I'm on Instagram as well. I'm on Twitter as well. There will be more projects coming out, so I'm going to update DanielMorteh.com with any other future updates with new websites or anything like that.
Okay.
You know, I'm going to have a different LLC. It was first TMX Media, but soon it's going to be under a different name. I took more business classes, so I'm definitely going to have more professional, contracts. You know, I'm going to do a lot more wedding photography. That's one thing. This, it's a very profitable industry as well as
to that portfolio.
Yes, exactly.
Cool. Thank you so much. It was really a pleasure speaking with you. Finally, at last. You know, I really enjoyed this.
Thank you very much.
It was awesome.
You rock.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Highlight of the Week. I would like to thank our very special guest, Kodaq Jonez, for coming through and speaking with us. I would also like to thank Union Republic for being such a great host. For more information on Union Republic and Kodaq Jonez, please visit the link in the description box below. For more information on Highlight of the Week, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and also like our Facebook fan page, IBRS TV on Facebook. Thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time.